Hey everybody, it's Kiwikatgamer and welcome to this comprehensive recap of the U.S. history from my U.S. history class. Today we start with colonial America and the start of the road of revolution. Let's go! One day, England must have waken up, looked outside of its window, and seen that everyone and their grandmother were taking over things in the America. So they thought, hey, we better get on this. So they did. They went to Roanoke. Nobody knows how that ended. Then they tried Jamestown. Success! That one worked. Now that they know that they could do this, they went on to found 13 more colonies. They were split into 3 regions founded by these people. The 3 regions were very creatively called New England, Middle Colonies, and Southern. Sometime after doing this, England said, okay, we trust you, don't go starting any wars, we're gonna leave you alone for a while, bye! With them pretty much on their own, the colonies had no choice but to start governing themselves, making their own things and making their own culture for themselves among their regions. New England, for example, was extremely Protestant, so extremely Protestant, in fact, that they kicked out anyone who wasn't a Protestant and didn't worship the way that they did. They did, however, have the most education out of any of the other regions. However, their education was mostly on how to be a better religious official, because in their culture, whoever was the best religious official had the most power in their place. And above all, they believed that they were the city on the hill, this place where everyone was supposed to look up to, and they never ever wanted that to go away. As far as economy goes, all they really did was fishing and shipbuilding, because they didn't really have very good land for farming. That isn't to say that everyone was a fisher or a shipbuilder, but the majority of their economy came from that. New England's governments, along with the other governments of the other regions, were very much representative and followed the Magna Carta, which stated that the king didn't have power to break the laws because no one was above the law and everyone was under them. These governments may have also eventually have been influenced by a man named John Locke, who believed in natural right, the belief that everyone had the rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of property, which eventually go on to be Pursuit of Happiness by Thomas Jefferson, but he believed that if a government didn't provide those natural rights to you, then you had the right to abolish that government. And eventually all the colonies would come together to form the colonial assemblies, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's continue. The MidAtlantic was much more chill with religion, seeing as how it was populated mostly by Quakers who believed in egalitarianism, which stated that every man was created equal. Their economy was focused a lot on both things, both commerce and agriculture, seeing as how they had a good mix of both of them. They had well-planned cities, which were basically just cities with grid systems, and they didn't really need slavery. Did somebody say slavery? Oh, look, it's the South! The South was England's cash cow, giving forth all kinds of cash crops like tobacco, rice, and indigo, and not cotton, yet. But they did need slaves for all these things. Outside of agriculture, there really wasn't much else going on down there in the South as a whole. For example, religion. No one really had time to go to church because there had to be giant plantations with lots and lots of land, and there wasn't cars back then, so we had to walk a long way to go to church. And if you were walking to go to church, then you weren't at home making money with your plantation. However, the churches that were there were usually still the Church of England, which means they were still very, very involved in English culture. As time went on, these colonies started getting bigger and more prosperous, which is good for England, until suddenly, oh no, we accidentally started the French and Indian War and we don't have the troops or resources necessary to protect ourselves adequately. Help us, Britain, said the colonies who had just accidentally started the French and Indian War and didn't have the resources and troops to defend themselves adequately. What did we specifically tell you right before leaving you alone for all those years? Said England, who probably reluctantly gave over troops to help. Eventually, the colonies, with the help of England, won. Yeah, said the colonies, so the victor goes the spoils. No, said England. Actually, what we're going to do is we're going to do the Proclamation of 1763, because we know that you just fought for this land, but we don't want there to be another war, so you can't ever pass this line. But, said the colonies who had just fought for that land. Oh, and since we helped you by sending over troops, which costs a lot of money, we're gonna start taxing you now. What? Said the colonies who already had their own way of taxing themselves, which was the colonial assemblies. That's right, said England. We're gonna start taxing your sugar now. That's dumb, said the colonies. Okay, fine, how about this one? We're gonna start taxing your newspapers, because you have no other way to learn anything, so newspapers are pretty much your daily way of life. That's super dumb, said the colonies, who began boycotting it. Okay, fine. How about this one? This one's a good one. What if we put a tax on paper, lead, glass, paint, and tea? Tea, said the colonies, who still kind of technically needed tea, because after all, they did all come from England. This was the last straw, and so 13 colonists in Boston, dressed up as Native Americans, got onto an East Indian trading ship and threw all the tea off into the Boston harbor. This would later be known as the Boston Tea Party. And that wasn't the only important thing that happened in Boston. There was also a Boston Massacre. Or, Boston, 3 people died and 7 people got injured. But that doesn't quite grab the tongue as Boston Massacre when you're looking at a newspaper. This, along with the unfair and unnecessary taxing, along with the quartering of British troops inside of colonial houses, were all things that led up to the American Revolution. Of course, there are people who weren't completely in favor of it, mainly the Southern loyalists who were still super dependent on England for all their money, but still, eventually everyone was on board with this. Which finally ended with a Declaration of Independence, which was basically the colonies breaking up with England via letter. You're never there for me, you never respect anything I do, you never want to go shopping with me, I saw you cheating on me with Brenda, so we're done. Okay, so maybe not that last part, but still, there was no one cause to the American Revolution. It was all these things building up together until finally the colonies had enough. And that'll be it for this recap. I hope it was adequate, and I hope I get a good grade on this test. That'll be it for this event. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Bye!